All right. So we got 3 chapters to go through. Don't worry too much. 2 of these chapters you've already seen the majority of, so we're just going to review it a little bit. Nothing too big. Um, but we've mentioned in the past this idea of orchestration, of getting things to the point where you are able to press one button or set up one job and it run for 100 different computers. So that idea, and this idea goes further than that, but that idea falls under this right here: infrastructure as code. So what that means is it is another one of those buzzwords like software as a service, right? It's that kind of phrase. But infrastructure as code means that everything that you have built, as far as configuration on your servers, when things happen, why things happen, documentation, everything, all of that is stored somewhere in a language of some kind. So one of the things that you're going to run into that ends up being this infrastructure as code stuff is this configuration management. So the big ones that you see are these: Chef, Puppet, and Ansible. There are others. There's SaltStack, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the other one. But there are more. But these just tended to be the ones that came out on top. Chef and Puppet are probably probably the oldest of the three, and they directly compete a lot of times. Well, they did directly compete until Ansible came out on the scene a few years ago. But all of these things, even though their languages are different, I can't remember the language that Chef uses, but Puppet uses Python, and Ansible uses YAML. So if you recall way back, I can't remember what chapter it is. It's like the first few chapters, though. I have some examples of what that looks like. But the idea with this is take Ansible, for instance, mostly because it's my favorite. You have the ability to write just a basic script. It's just a text file that contains a few things that basically says, what answers the question, what distribution am I affecting? And then it'll be the way that you do that is you tell it the package manager. So you will, if it's a Red Hat based system or OpenSUSE based system or something like that, you will tell it just on a single line, DNF. That's what we're dealing with, or apt if you're dealing with Debian or Ubuntu based systems. And it will know how to install software. So you just give it a big old long list of software and say, I want VirtualBox on here, I want Firefox on here, I want Chrome on here, I want this and that, and this other crazy software. You have, on the Red Hat side, if you're looking at derivatives like Fedora, you have packaging systems like Flatpak, and on Ubuntu you have packaging systems like Snap that you can also leverage through Ansible, and you just say snap install basically this or that, and all that software will be there. You just have to tell Ansible, all right, that script I wrote for you, run it. And it will work off of a list of systems that the Ansible system knows about. So you give it a list of systems to target and a way to target them, and it'll take care of it. But the deal with that is that Ansible won't do anything until you tell it to. Well, if it's something like every day, like run updates or make sure this software is installed, you want that to happen on the off hours, right? You don't want, necessarily, I guess, icons popping up on people's computers because they're going to call you and ask what they are, especially if it's right in the middle of the day or something like that. If it happens every morning before anybody gets there and the software is just there, it's a little more understandable that software gets installed at night. The admin team does this stuff. Obviously send an email and say, hey, there's going to be this new icon on your desktop if you're in this group, and it's used for this and that and whatever. You kind of head off that call. But the idea is that if you're going to run those things at 1 a.m., you don't want someone to have to log into the system and make that happen at 1 a.m. So that gets into the main topic, which is automation. Cron is king. What that means is cron, as in chronological. That is the name of the automation system baked right into every single Linux. Now, the cool thing about cron is that it is in every single Linux, meaning that if you learn how to use cron, you know how to use cron for all Linux. No matter where you are, no matter where you go, no matter what distribution you're on, cron is cron. So the cool thing about that is that you get to learn this stuff once, and there's not too much as far as directly cron itself goes. There's not too much variance between all of the different distributions. Some quick differences, though, like you as a user have your own cron tab. So cron tab is the way that you will actually invoke cron, and tab is like a table. Here is a table of all of the different things that I want to happen in order. Well, not necessarily in order. You give it a time and a date and everything. But you just have this table of things that you want to happen automatically. And then you go in and define in that table when that happens, how often that happens. Does it happen once a month? Does it happen once a year? Does it happen every night? You tell it exactly when to run. The difference, though, will lie in the information that you get when you run cron tab. So if I'm not mistaken, this one here, the screenshot that I've got is Ubuntu. And when you invoke it, Red Hat, when you invoke it, or CentOS or Fedora, when you invoke cron tab, it's basically just going to drop you into VI. So you have to remember some basic things, right? If you're going to save in VI, you want to do a :WQ, hit enter to save things, write and quit. Escape to get out of the typing mode. I to get into the typing mode. And those basic things will get you by. The quitting is the hardest thing. But that's the deal. In Ubuntu, when you type in cron tab, it's like, hey, what do you want to use? We have VI, we have Vim, we have Nano, we have all these different text editors that you can use. So you just choose what you want. And, myself, I'm just like, let's Nano. Easy, right? It's Notepad with colors. So I usually just go with Nano or something like that. But all of the cron tabs will give you kind of a basic, here's what's going on. Yeah, that's right, because that one, okay, yeah, this is Ubuntu. So in Ubuntu, it'll give you this whole idea, right, where you have to define, here's an example of it, 05***1, and then here's the command that you want to run. That should look familiar, right? A tar backup, zip it up, create this file right here from this. So this is a backup. This is a quick way to back up your home folder, all your home folders. So every user that exists, all their home folders, put it into a backup called home.tgz in /var/backups. And that will happen at 5 a.m. the first of the week. So that will probably be Sunday, I would guess. Sunday is the first day of the week. How do I know that? Well, here you go. The cron is set up where you define what minute you want it to run, what hour you want it to run, what day of the month you want it to run. Let me see, what was that? Month of something. And then day of the week. I always forget what that one is. Here, month. Oh, mon for just month. Yeah, they're all defined up here. Minute, hour, day of the month, and then day of the week. So anyway, so you can see 05, this is 5 a.m., and then 1, DOW, you can see day of the week, first day of the week, 1 day of the week, and that's Sunday. So Sunday at 5 a.m., this backup task runs. It's the way it works. Easy peasy. You could literally take out the hash mark from right there, save this cron tab file, and it would do that. And it would put it in var backups home.tgz. Every Sunday at 5 a.m., it would run that. So that's as deep and wide as cron really gets. The hard part about cron is not cron itself. It's making sure the task that you're trying to run is valid, works, and will work every time you run it. Because if you think about this would fail the second time, right? There's already a file there. So you would run into an issue where if home.tgz already exists the second time, then it won't write because it will have to overwrite that file. So you can set up things to where it will overwrite at the far end, but you've got to think about stuff like that. So that's the hard part of cron, getting the command in such a way that you don't have to think about it anymore. So a better way to deal with this is what I'm having y'all do in the lab, which is create this file, but name it based on the date and time. That way, the file name is new every time you run it, right? Because it's never the exact same day and the exact same week and the exact same year and the exact same minute and hour. So since that will change, the file name will always change. But the cool thing about that is that for archival purposes, you know exactly what week. If you know, hey, I deleted this file on this day. Well, you know to go get the backup from that particular week, the one that started that week, to go pull that original file back out of, right? So anyway, for archival purposes, it helps out that way as well. So kind of kill two birds with one stone on that. Anyway, you can see in CentOS the way that the cron tab, the etc cron tab file exists. So this is where root would go set up its own cron thing. So if you want root to be able to do administrative tasks like, create a list of people that need to go for whatever reason, and just tell root every night, look at this list. If a user is on that list, then go and delete everything, or go and move everything to a different directory so we can have archive of it or something like that, right? That way, no one can still log in, if whatever the deal may be. You can just have a cleanup task at the end of the night, something like that. So you would set this up. On Red Hat, you would set this up here. In Ubuntu, you can just do sudo crontab. So crontab E is yours as your user. Sudo crontab E is roots. So that does work in Red Hat as well, or CentOS as well. Anyway, so in the crontab configuration file, so etc crontab, you can see that the environmental variables are set. So what that means is you've got definitions in here, right? So shell equals bin bash. So the only reason that it's like this is because things need to be explicit sometimes. And in this case, you're just making sure that that the system knows that your shell is bin bash. Your path, so if you just want to be able to type the names of commands instead of having to say /user, /sbin, / whatever, tar, something like that, then you need to set up your path. Path needs to be there. So sbin, bin, user sbin, and user bin. Those are all part of your path. So if whatever program you are calling is in those directories, then you're golden. You don't need to change anything. You can just type in tar. No worries. And then if, even on completes, like if things go good, if things go bad, there's always a mail to root. That only works if you actually have mail installed, which most of our systems do not. Cool. All right, so here's some examples. Like I said, the hardest part is figuring out what you want to do and the best way to do it, not necessarily how to work cron. So what happens here? Every minute. Because that star means every. I guess you can think of it like meaning every. So every minute of every hour of every day of every month of every day of the week, run this. And it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, this particular thing is just called some app. Obviously just made up, right? And then, throw your options in there. And this at the very end. You've seen stuff like this. It's this character here, redirect. Might be easier to read as that. So errors and regular output, send it all to devnull. And if you remember, we've talked about devnull a couple times. That's just your black hole. It's your bit bucket. It's where you throw stuff away. If you want something to be suppressed or removed or just never even recorded, you send it to DevNull. So what I'm saying here is I want to run this app with the option options, whatever that is, and then any output that comes out right here, errors and regular output, send it to DevNull. Or we can run it once a month, every once a month, then run that same thing with those same options, and I want to append. So in TMP, this SumApp log is just a running log of everything that happens with this app. And I know it's a running log because of this, right? One single arrow says, every time you write this, overwrite what's in it with this. The double arrows like this means don't remove what's in there, just add this stuff to the end. So any kind of log, any kind of information, or good information, no errors are going to go in there, right? Because I'm not specifying 2 and 1. And this 2 and 1 is referencing standard out and standard error. So remember, there's 0, 1, and 2. 0 is standard in, 1 is standard out, 2 is standard error. So because I'm not doing that, all you get is standard out. So standard out goes to SumApp log. Then, right, if you want to do something funky here, so like at midnight on Monday of January, so the first Monday of January, we're going to run that SumApp with options, right? And, I don't care about the log. Nothing. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to run that app, whatever it is, whatever it does. I want to run it once a year on the first Monday of the year, essentially. And there's some cool nicknames, right? So if you're doing something every year or every month or every day, there's some really cool nicknames that you can use at yearly. But you need to go into the manual page of crontab to actually see what it is that's defined here. So yearly, right? First day of the first month at midnight, run it. And then, annually means the exact same thing. Notice the cron timing is exactly the same here. Monthly, similar, right? Weekly, daily, and hourly. So if you want some basic examples, you can go check out, just type this in to the terminal, man5 crontab. It'll take you straight to the 5th section, which contains all these nicknames. And you can get some basic examples of like, well, what would daily look like? And if you want to tweak that a little bit, those are just some good starting points, right? I've got some examples for you up here, some examples for you in the man page. So some things to consider. If you want some users to not be able to set these cron tabs up. So, right, you notice that as a user, admin or not, everybody has a cron tab. If you want to deny people from running cron, then you just type their username in here. If the file does not exist, make it. I mean, if you're not going to be denying or allowing people, then just don't make it. Because in Ubuntu, anyway, that will mean that if you do not make the file, either of those, that means that anybody can use crontab. In Red Hat or in CentOS, they already exist, and everybody is added to the allow file. If you need them to not be allowed, either just remove them from the allow or move them to the deny. So CentOS goes by the explicit or implicit deny, right? If you're not in one of those lists, then you're not allowed. If you're in deny, well, then I know to definitely deny you. CentOS is not going to lose any sleep either way, however you deal with it. But Ubuntu, until one of those files is created, neither of those files exist by default. So until one of them is created, Ubuntu will just let everybody use crontab, which is kind of defeats the implicit deny thing, but I don't think Ubuntu cares. So Just know that if you want to actually set that up for Ubuntu, you'll need to create one or both of those files. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So one of the things that you're going to run into, one of the things that you're going to deal with is think about this, right? You've got yourself a server or a laptop. Well, let's say you got a laptop, right? So you've got a task that you want to run on your laptop, like delete the temporary file directory, temp directory. You want to do that every 3 a.m. when you're not awake and you're not at your computer and you're not doing anything, right? So what you will do is set up your cron job for 3 a.m. But what happens when on your laptop, every night at midnight, when you close your laptop and go to bed, your laptop is in suspend mode? Cron won't work. Your computer has to be on for cron to work. This is why it's great for servers and a little less great for laptops and other devices that we can put to sleep. So, what is the answer to that? Anacron. So, Anacron is a lot like cron. Not exactly the same, but very close. Anacron is like lazy cron. So Anacron will basically just say, okay, I know I need to run this thing every single day. Well, if your computer's off for 3 days, what does Anacron do? Anacron then looks into the lists of things that it knows that it needs to do, and is like, oh, hey, I should have been deleting temp 2 days ago, but, the computer hadn't been on for 2 days, so I'll get to it here in just a minute. So that's exactly what will happen. Anacron will wait at least 5 minutes and then just do it. Once something happens, once you want something to happen, like daily or whatever, and Anacron realizes that, it will get to it. So that's the deal. With cron, things happen exactly when you tell them to. With Anacron, they happen when it's convenient for the system. So that way, and that's why I call it lazy cron, right? It doesn't happen exactly on a schedule. It happens, if you say it daily, it happens sometime that day. And usually it's just a few minutes after boot. So, let me see. Oh, yeah, there it is. So you can actually look. So if you're looking at Etsy Anacron tab, in Ubuntu you have to install it. So be aware if you're just in the Ubuntu box trying to follow along or whatever. Anacron is not installed. You have to install it. So once you install it, sudo apt install Anacron tab, you'll get this file. In CentOS, it's already there. Period and days, 1. So you want whatever jobs exist in Etsy cron.daily, you will just put your jobs there. As in, I have a script that I want to run every single day. You put it in that directory, and it runs once a day, about 5 minutes after boot. Nice run parts. So basically what you're saying is don't run over anybody as far as taking time away, system time away. This is why I'm saying like about 5 minutes. If there are a lot of system heavy things that are going on right now, then Anacron will wait. It will take a back seat, and this is again why I say lazy. This is why it takes a back seat to those kinds of things. Anyway, yep. Cool. Yeah. So if you want it to happen daily, once 5 minutes after boot. If you want it to happen weekly, every 7 days, 25 minutes after boot. If you want it to happen monthly, you can even use those little keywords that we were looking at before up there. Or you could just put 30 here, and then 45 minutes after boot. Some distributions decide they want to stick hourly in there. So, cool. If you want to use that, if it's there, then use that. Well, the last little bit of scheduling stuff is this. At. All right, so cron is meant for things that are going to happen all the time, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Anacron is the lazy version of that. Well, at is the single version of that, right? You know you want to run something at 7 p.m., but you know that you don't want to get up and log into your server across town at 7 p.m. to do something. Well, at on your lunch break or right after you come back from lunch or something like that, you can just set up that job for 7 hours in the future. 6 hours, whatever. Maybe you took your lunch early. So you can set that up with @. But @ is for the thing that you need, that you know needs to happen one time. You just need to delete this directory one time, but it can't happen until after 7 p.m. So you would come down and you would say, that would be the command that you ran, @ and then just write the time. And then it'll give you this prompt. You don't type the little alligator. I never know what those are called. The greater than symbol. And then tell it what app, what program, what binary, whatever. You just type that in. And if you want, you add your options, do whatever it is. Like, write the command the way that you would normally write it. And then when you're done, hit Control D. You don't have to type that out. You literally strike those keys. Control D. I don't know. I just got a flashback to playing games way back in the day. Strike the Enter key. Yeah. Anyway, so that's to run something at 5 p.m. You just swap that to a 7 to get what I was talking about before. Maybe you need something, so like it's the end of the day. You're done. But it takes everybody else about 15 minutes to close up shop and get the heck out of here. So you want to run a thing in 30 minutes. This is how you'll do it. @ now in 30 minutes. So basically, now plus 30 minutes. So 30 minutes from now, essentially, is what you're saying here. Run your app, add your options if you need them, and then type in Control D. It's got cool keywords as well. At noon or midnight, you run that app and then hit Control D. Run that app, hit Control D. All right? So that's pretty simple. It does what you tell it to do. If you need to run something at some time, then okay. So if you want to see what @'s got, let me fix that. What it's got to do, what's got left, or what it's got on its docket, you just type in ATQ. The @Q. And then you'll see all of the jobs generated by people, but you will not see what the job does. Yeah, if you want to see what exact jobs are pending, you'll just, as root, you can sudo cat varspool @, and you'll see the same list of things that you saw in ATQ, but you'll actually see the command that's going to be run as well. ATQ will literally tell you, Betty started a job or wants a job to start at 2 p.m., but that's about it, right? If you want to see what that job actually is, you got to look in this directory, and you got to be root to do it. And, that one got its formatting messed up too. So when you do ATQ, it gives you a number. It tells you, job number 1, Betty wants this at 2. Job number 2, Jeremy wants this at 5. Something like that. But it's number 1, number 2, number 3. If you want to delete Jeremy's job, which is sitting at number 2, then ATRM2. This here. And the number 2, space the number 2. That'll take care of you. That'll get rid of a job. Jeremy's job, specifically, not just any job. The number of the job that you're talking about. So that's it. That's the hard part this week. So cron, figuring out the times and then getting your application to run the way that you want it. You got to think about things a little differently though with it. Anacron, the lazy cron, and @. So the last little bit of this is not really difficult, and to be honest with you, might show up on a test with one question or two. But to be honest with you, you're going to run into these things maybe once or twice on a system But when we were talking about Ansible and Chef and Puppet and all, yeah, that handles localization. You don't even have to think about this. If you have to manually configure one, though, here's how you do it. So time.date.ctl, you can just run that command, and it'll give you all the localization information. It'll tell you, you are in this time zone. It is this time right here. You have this key map. You have, and key map means what your keyboard looks like, right? Because if you go to France, they've got a different keyboard than you. Letters are in different spots. You got that C with that little dangly thing at the bottom of it, right? Like there are keys that they have that you don't have, and you have keys that here that they don't have, right? They don't use a dollar sign. They have the euro sign. So, differences, right? And the key map is what tells Linux, hey, I'm using a US standard keyboard, so, I don't have a euro key. So don't try and put euro keys or euro characters in when I'm typing stuff. Right, so we'll get to that a little bit. So TZ select or TZ config or TZ data. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Each system has its own way to deal with a time zone. So the easiest way to directly deal with the time zone using the older styles, which are these three here, you type in TZ and then tab. Hit tab a couple times just to see if TZ select or TZ config is configured on your system. If neither are configured on your system and you are on a Debian base, then you need to reconfigure TZ data. So that would look like dpackage reconfigure TZ data. It would look like that. Because what you would want is to reinstall the TZ data package, and when you reinstall the TZ data package, it asks you, oh, okay, well, what time zone are you? So you'll just ask it to do that. Or you just use the new way, which is time.date.ctl set-time zone, and then if you don't know what your time zone is, for us, it's always America/Chicago, typed exactly that way. If you don't know, if you're in a different area that may have its own time zone, or has its, like in Arizona, they don't or New Mexico, I don't remember. They don't respect daylight savings. We should all do that, but we don't. So they have their own time zone so that the Linux system does not assume that on this day at this time, time goes forward or behind, right? Well, we still observe that. So America, Chicago, we observe the same time Chicago does. You would think there would be a Dallas, but there's not. So America, Chicago. Anyway, that's it right there. Done. You don't got to worry about what TZ you have. You don't have to worry about configuring TZ data, anything like that. You just do this. This will do it. You can also set time. Set-time instead of set-time zone. And you can either just type the time by itself, right? 15, 30, 20. That is setting it to 3 o'clock, 3:30, and 20 seconds. Or you can give it the whole thing. You can set time and date. Makes it easy. And then, like I said, if you just type it by itself, it'll remind you of all of this. Your time zone is America, Chicago. The date is 2/20/2020. The time is 5:30 and 20 seconds. So here's what I was talking about before about the key map, locale. That has to deal with your location. So locale to Linux will define these things. What do addresses look like? How do you measure things? Centimeters or inches? What does your money look like? Euros or dollars? What do names look like? Like in Japan, they are last name, first name. In America, they are first name, last name. Numeric. Think about writing a million. But turns out in every Latin American country, they use dots instead of commas. Phone numbers, right? In the UK, their area codes are like 2 digits. Here, they're 3. Time, 12 versus 24, right? Most everybody else in this world uses 24-hour time. We, 12. Why not? Be different. Inches, 12. Yeah. Just be different, man. It's have to be difficult. Anyway, so if you want to change any of that, here it is. localctl, set locale, and you can just do a double tab and it'll give you all the different things. You want to do lang equals, and this is us. English in the US using the UTF. So UTF is basically a standard of writing. Oops. So we can look it up real quick. Unicode transformation. UTF-66 came out, and so the number is talking about bits, how much information you can actually store. But the version of UTF has just revved to 66, and the cool thing about that is that since the 60s, like as in the version number of 60, UTF has contained all the emojis. Yep, you can literally type emojis in the Linux terminal. They might not show up right, but they will be there. Anyway, and your key map is US. Right? I think like FR for French, talking about the euro and all that other stuff. And there's UK. They have a couple of, because they use the pound sign, the pound sterling for their money. And then if you just type in localctl, that'll display your current settings. All right. So we've already talked about localization. We've already talked about time date CTL. I've even had people submit time date CTL as an answer to things. And I mean, hey, if it's right, it's right. I'm not going to count you wrong for that. Localctl is something that we haven't dealt with because we usually just deal with that during installation of the system. You guys have encountered this. You just may or may not remember, right? First couple questions when you're installing Ubuntu. Where are you? What kind of keyboard do you have? You're really configuring localctl there. And then it literally asks you, well, what's your time zone too? And you're configuring time date CTL. So 9 times out of 10, you're not dealing with this again after the fact. But if you need to deal with it, this is how you do it. All right. And then you just need to remember some of these words. Chef, Puppet, Ansible. Puppet uses Python. Ansible uses YAML. What does Chef use? I do not remember. Ruby. Oh, it uses Ruby. Ruby's about as easy as Python to learn. Maybe a little difficult, more difficult. But yeah, overall, I think that's probably why Puppet and Ansible are really becoming popular here lately. And the Python and YAML are just easier to understand, easier to jump on, if you've never done it before. But other than that, that's about it as far as all the junk I need to tell you today. And so let's jump into the lab real quick. So the lab is all about cron. You can see where I am putting my focus or asking you to put your focus. Well, it's all about scheduling, I guess. Because CentOS, we're using @. So before you get started, I think you already have a secondary disk in both these VMs. If you don't, add one. If you do, just use it. No big deal. Mount it here in CentOS. Mount C home backup, right? C for CentOS. So mount that 10 gig drive or whatever drive you put in there. I don't really care. There. And then type in lsblk and take a screenshot of that. I want to see that it's mounted there. Then using the command, back up the entire home folder. I would say 5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. But here's the deal. The hard part about all this is not it's the date thing. So I asked you to do this a week or two ago, and here's what I want from you. So include the date in the gzipped archive. Let me fix that. That should say the name. All right, so I'll fix that. Let me explain this. So when you create the archive, you're going to be using tar, and tar asks, what file do you want me to create at the end of all of this? What I want you to do is use command substitution to put the current date and time in the file name. So it'll say home backup 2020 04, what's today? 13, 14? 14 and .tar.gz or .tgz or something like that, right? I want the date and time in the file name. That way, you know when you took that backup, regardless of if you've made changes to it, right? There is that date attribute on files, but I don't want you to rely on that. I need you to have it in the file name. So before we go on, let me make sure that it actually says that. In the resulting gzipped archive file name. Let's see if I type that over here too, because I think I did it down here too. Bzip archive file name. There we go. Okay. All right. So you're going to create a backup using @ and it'll say something like home backup and the date and time. Or at least the date. I don't actually say time. So just the date. If you want to throw the time in there too, you can. But the date is all that I need. But remember, you can't just do date. You can't just say date. You have to have formatting in there because by default, it's got spaces, right? Because that's just how we type it in real life. But Linux file names can't have spaces, or if they do, you got to have all kinds of crazy escape characters to make it work. So just don't have spaces. So what I would like you to do before you start running this @ command, get your date tweaked up. Remember how you do that? It's just date space plus, and then if you've got spaces in it, you won't have spaces, so you won't need the quotes. You just like plus % capital Y for the year, and then % this, % that, % whatever. That way you get out a full file name. Let me see. Does date work here? Yeah. So you want something like %m. Right. There's the year and the month, and then I think day. Oh, nope, can't have that. How about that one? There we go. Right? I mean, that's close enough. So substitute that in to the @ command at the end of your file name so that every time that you have a date, or every time that you have a file name, that part gets added to the file name. All right. Anyway, that's the idea. And then same thing with Ubuntu, except we're using cron instead of @. Right, so create U for Ubuntu. So mount the 10 gig drive in U-home backup. And then back up the whole home folder to it using cron tab. So you're going to need to do a sudo cron tab E here because root owns the home directory, not your user. So you got to be careful with that. And then remember, command substitution to include the date in the resulting bzipped, right? That says gzip, that says bzip. Pay attention to that. And then just put it in that mount uhome backup. And then take a screenshot of the cron tab file. I want to see the line that you used to create that. And then show me the bzipped archive. That's it. So show me you mounted the drive, show me the @ command, show me the resulting gzipped archive. And basically the same thing for the Ubuntu. So show me the mount, show me the cron tab line, and then show me the resulting archive, bzipped archive. And that'll do it. Your quiz is shorter than normal. I think there's only like 4 questions in it. Oops. So that shouldn't take you too terribly long. And it's all about cron and whatnot. So you should be good there. All right. Look at that. I'm done about 20 minutes early, too. You guys have any questions?
I'm at the screen.
Those notes have enough examples to get you far enough to get in trouble anyway. And then the hardest part about this stuff is the command line substitution stuff. So remember, you can either use the backtick. That's the key to the left of the 1. Don't hold shift or anything. Just press that key. Or you can do the variable thing, which is $, open parentheses, and then whatever command you want, and then close that parentheses. You can do one or the other for command line substitution. The backticks is the old deprecated way. It's the way you shouldn't be using anymore, but I mean, I use it all the time anyway. And the $ parenthesis way is the new way that you're supposed to be doing it. It sets it to a non-named variable that way. It just doesn't get saved. It just runs it once and that's it. So
It looks pretty straightforward, but I'll probably be on it for about 8 days.
yeah. Well, don't worry about it. Just if you have troubles with it or whatever, hit me up in Slack or on Thursday. We'll shake that tree and figure it out. Was that Nick?
I'll probably be in the same book with Ron.
All right. Well, like I said, Thursday or Friday, 11 o'clock. Come see me. Well, virtually.
Oh, yeah.
Well, all right, guys. I'm going to kill the recording.